Listen to me very carefully, dear people of God. There is a kind of marriage that is not born out of human calculation, emotional attraction, or cultural pressure, but out of divine orchestration. And before God ever brings a person into your life, he begins a deep, sometimes painful, but always purposeful walk in you. Before the wedding ever happens, before the engagement ever comes, before the person even appears, God works on the vessel. Because marriage is not just a love story. It is a divine strategy. It is God's system for raising kingdom dominion, generational impact, and spiritual legacy. Have you ever wondered why it seems like God is delaying your relationship season even though you've prayed, fasted, and remained faithful? Could it be that you are not being punished but being prepared? In this message, I will show you undeniable spiritual indicators, signs that God is preparing you for a marriage that carries his fingerprint. If you have ever asked, Lord, where is the one you have for me? Then this message is your divine answer. Don't stop halfway. Don't scroll past. What I am about to share will save you years of delay, protect you from counterfeits, and position you at the gate of your prophetic relationship. Are you ready? Then let us journey through the process of divine preparation. There is a mystery in the dealings of God with men. A principle so consistent throughout scripture that ignoring it is to delay your destiny. It is this: before divine connection, there is divine separation. When God is preparing you for something or someone significant, the first thing he often does is pull you away. This separation is not always geographical, though that can happen. It is not even always physical, though it may manifest in your relationships, activities, or patterns. More often, it is a spiritual detachment from distractions, false associations, and even old versions of yourself that are not compatible with the future God is about to unveil. Let me speak prophetically to you. God cannot bring you into covenant with destiny relationships until he has first brought you out of the noise of compromise, confusion, and contradiction. Consider Abraham. In Genesis 12, the first command God gives him is not, I will bless you, but get thee out. Before the promise, before the land, before the multiplication, there was separation. Why? Because what God wanted to do with Abraham's life could not be built on old foundations, and it could not be shared with people who did not carry the same spiritual covenant. God had to take him out so he could take him in. And this is true for you. When God is preparing you for a kingdom marriage, one that reflects his nature, honors his will, and carries generational consequence, he will begin by separating you. He will separate you from people who do not speak your language of destiny. He will begin to disturb your comfort with relationships that once satisfied you. The texts you once waited for will no longer excite you. The company you once craved will now feel like a cage. This is not emotional instability. It is spiritual reconfiguration. Why does God do this? Because when the right person shows up, ordained by God, you must be spiritually calibrated to recognize them. And this requires solitude, not isolation unto depression, but separation unto consecration. The kind of person God is preparing for you and preparing you for will require a different version of you. That version is only born in the womb of separation. Separation is God's tool for focus. Until you are alone with him, you will never hear him clearly. Many have missed divine connections because they were still entangled with soulish distractions. God cannot speak to a crowded heart. He must separate you so he can speak, refine, and align. Look at Jesus. Before he chose the 12, he spent the night alone in prayer. Before major alignment, there was intentional withdrawal. Do not despise your season of silence. That quietness is not rejection, it is incubation. God is hiding you not because you are unwanted, but because you are becoming too precious to be exposed prematurely. There are some people listening to me now. You are in that season. Friends are walking away. Calls have slowed down. Invitations have dried up. You're wondering, God, what's going on? Let me tell you, he is separating you. He is preparing you to meet not just a spouse, but a partner in prophecy. He is cutting away every false comfort so you can encounter a covenant companion. This is why many enter marriage unprepared. They were never willing to walk alone with God first. So they settle for what is available rather than wait for what is divine. Don't rush the process. Let the separation do its perfect work. Let it cleanse your appetites. Let it reorder your priorities. Let it train your ears to hear God's voice, so that when he speaks about that man or that woman, you will not confuse his instruction with your infatuation. The man or woman God is preparing for you is also being processed, and their preparation, like yours, involves separation. Trust the timing of God. In the realm of destiny, delays are not denials. They are preparations in disguise. One of the most critical yet often overlooked parts of divine preparation for marriage is character refinement. Not charisma, not beauty, not eloquence. Character. The strength of any kingdom marriage is not built upon feelings or chemistry. It is built upon the integrity of character. And when God is preparing you for a covenant relationship, he is more interested in who you are becoming than in how quickly you meet someone. Because what you attract by charisma, you must sustain by character. If not, what began in excitement will end in frustration. Let me tell you something deep. You don't marry prayer points. You marry patterns. People often cry to God, Lord, give me a faithful spouse. But they themselves are unfaithful with responsibility, with time, with promises, with small assignments. So before God connects you to someone faithful, he works on making you faithful. This is the wisdom of heaven. Before Ruth ever met Boaz, she followed Naomi with loyalty, diligence, and humility. She was a woman of character. While others were seeking status and attention, Ruth was developing integrity in the shadows. And when Boaz saw her, he did not first see her beauty. He testified of her character. All the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. Rule 3:11. This is the language of kingdom men and women. Not she's fine, not he's rich, but they are proven. There is a refinement God brings that doesn't feel spiritual at first. It begins to highlight your temperament, your tone, your ability to forgive, your pride, your reactions when you are not applauded, your faithfulness when no one is watching. These may seem like small things, but there are the emotional maturity to handle dishonor. Do you asking for a kingdom marriage, but do you have the emotional maturity to handle? Can you disagree and still remain submitted to the voice of God? Can you stay committed when it's not convenient? These are the questions that divine preparation will expose, not to condemn you, but to transform you. Hear me. Marriage is a furnace. And if your character has not been refined before entering it, the fire will not purify you. It will consume you. Many have had beautiful wedding days, but disastrous marriages, because they carried undefined hearts into a divine institution. God is not being unfair by delaying the connection. He's being merciful. If he gave you what you asked for without working on you, it will destroy both of you. So he refines, and the process is uncomfortable. He will place you in situations that test your patience, not because he wants you to suffer, but because he wants you to see yourself. He will allow dishonor to reveal whether you have mastered restraint. He will let people forget your contribution, so you learn to serve without entitlement. This is not punishment, it is purification. Because the person God is preparing for you is also going through the fire. And God's justice will not allow you to enter their life as a liability if they have paid a price in the spirit. He will demand you do the same. In this season, God may start speaking to you more about internal issues than external connection. He may speak more. by your integrity than your intimacy. He may challenge you to confront generational mindsets, to repent of silent bitterness, to walk away from things that feed your ego or starve your spirit. This is refinement. Character is what sustains prophecy. The oil on your life can attract a person, but only character can keep them. Let me press deeper. When God refines your character, he's not just preparing you to have a good marriage. He's preparing you to become a good. There is a difference. Many are more focused on finding the right person than on becoming the right person. But the kingdom way is always inside out. Transformation precedes manifestation. So don't despise the test. Don't resist the mirrors God places in front of you. Don't pray away every uncomfortable season. Some are assigned to confront you, correct you, and conform you to Christ. Because when the moment of divine connection comes, what will say the relationship is not just that you prayed, but that you were proven. When God is preparing you for a divine marriage, one of the clearest signs is not just a change in your emotions or circumstances. It is a radical shift in your discernment. Your spiritual senses begin to sharpen. What you used to tolerate, you can no longer entertain. What once looked attractive now becomes a spiritual burden. You begin to see differently. This shift is not intellectual, it is spiritual perception under divine influence. Discernment is heaven's defense system. It is how God protects you from what appears good but is not God. Before you step into the covenant of marriage, especially one ordained by God, you must be trained to recognize authenticity in the spirit. Let me tell you, beloved, every open door is not from God, and every smiling face is not from heaven. There are people, atmospheres, and opportunities that are satanically engineered to look like answered prayers. Without discernment, you will step into warfare thinking it's a wedding. Discernment is not suspicion. It is not paranoia. It is a divine capacity to perceive the truth behind appearances. And when God begins to prepare you for the right person, he starts filtering your relationships, not through your emotions, but through your spirit. People you once thought were the one begin to lose their grip on your heart, not because they changed, but because your eyes opened. That's the shift. You are no longer moved by surface qualities alone. Height, complexion, elegance, vocabulary. These become secondary. You start to ask deeper questions. Does this person have spiritual alignment? Do they honor God in private? Do they carry peace or confusion? Is their presence cultivating my consecration or corrupting it? And let me say this clearly. God never brings destiny relationships wrapped in confusion. He is not the author of confusion. Where there is restlessness and contradiction, wait. Don't overwrite the check in your spirit just because your heart is in a hurry. There are many who have suffered not because they didn't pray, but because they ignored what they felt in their spirit. Your spirit man was trying to speak, but your emotions muted it. And now you're picking up broken pieces God never handed you. So what does this shift look like practically? First, your tolerance for compromise decreases. You can no longer flirt with red flags and call it faith. You stop romanticizing toxicity and labeling it God is still working on them. No, discernment brings clarity. You begin to love people without marrying their dysfunction. You realize that love without wisdom is emotional suicide. Second, you begin to value spiritual compatibility over carnal chemistry. There's nothing wrong with attraction. It has its place. But discernment tells you whether that attraction is a trap or a signpost. Some connections are assigned to delay you, to drain you, to distract you. But when your discernment increases, you sense a misalignment, even in silence. Third, God begins to sharpen your dreams, impressions, and prophetic senses. You wake up from conversations disturbed, not because of what was said, but because of what was spiritually imparted imparted. You sense weights and warnings from the Holy Spirit that you didn't feel before. That is discernment maturing. Let me share a mystery. When your discernment increases, you will sometimes be lonely but never lost, because God will pull you away from many options, not to punish you but to protect what He's building. You'll start seeing things others don't. You'll decline offers others are begging for. That is the price of prophetic alignment. And sometimes you'll find that the very people around you don't understand your choices. They say, he's a good guy, or she's beautiful. What more do you want? But you know in your spirit, this is not it. It takes maturity to walk away from a good thing when you know it's not a God thing. Because the right person is not just about love and laughter. It is about assignment. It is about peace. It is about purpose. And your discernment must be sharp enough to detect purpose wrapped in a person. That's why God doesn't just answer your prayer for marriage by sending someone. He answers it by adjusting your sensitivity. Because what you fail to discern in peace, you will wrestle with in pain. When God is preparing you for a divine marriage, He trains your eyes to see beyond the visible. You will hear what is not being said. You will sense what is hidden beneath smiles. And you will choose with clarity, not confusion. When God begins to prepare you for a divine marriage, He shifts your desire from romance alone to purpose above all. It's not that romance becomes irrelevant, but it can no longer be the compass guiding your decisions. The obsession with butterflies gives way to a passion for kingdom alignment. You stop asking who will love me and begin asking who will help me fulfill what God wrote concerning me. This is a sacred transition in the spirit, because there are many who want the warmth of love but not the weight of purpose. They want wedding days without destiny, rings without responsibility, emotion without assignment. But when God is truly the architect of your marital journey, He will stir in you a holy dissatisfaction for superficial connection. He will burden you with legacy. You begin to hunger not just for someone who loves you, but for someone who matches your mandate. Purpose is not a religious add-on. It is the very reason why covenant exists. In the eyes of God, marriage is not just for companionship. It is for co-laboring. Adam was given work before he was given Eve. God did not bring Eve because Adam was lonely. He brought her because Adam had a garden that needed cultivating, guarding, and governing. That is a picture of divine order, purpose before partnership. When your desire for marriage begins to align with your divine assignment, your definition of the right person changes. You begin to discern based on assignment compatibility. You ask, can this person walk with me in the fire of intercession? Will they push me toward obedience when I feel tired? Do they carry the same fire, or will I have to shrink to keep them? Let me tell you, the person who only excites your emotions but weakens your convictions is not sent by God. Romance may start a relationship, but only ovulation sustains it. And when the storms come, and they will, it is not the flowers, the dates, or the music that keeps you standing. It is the certainty that this union was birthed by heaven for kingdom purpose. There's a kind of love that grows in the soil of divine purpose. A love that doesn't just say, I need you, but says, that is what happens when purpose becomes a lens. You are not seduced by charisma. You are drawn by covenant. That's why God begins to expose you to vision. He starts giving you dreams and assignments and burdens. He wants your heart anchored in something bigger than just being wanted. He wants you driven by legacy, because the one He is preparing for you is not just coming with a smile. They are coming with a calling. And if you are not purpose driven, you will turn your back on what is eternal for what is emotional. Hear me carefully. Any relationship that takes you away from your kingdom assignment is not a reward. It's a distraction. God does not join people based on how cute they look together. He joins them based on how powerful they will be together. And until your heart is aligned with this principle, you will keep falling for appearances while rejecting divine alignments disguised in simplicity. We begin to understand that love in the kingdom is not just about happiness. It is about harvest. Your marriage becomes a field where God plants his intentions for generations. Your home becomes an altar. Your union becomes a weapon. And your love becomes a testimony of divine intelligence. That's why when purpose becomes your focus, you stop chasing people who don't carry your burden. You can love them, honor them, bless them, but you no longer beg to be understood by those who do not share your fire. You realize that compatibility in the spirit is not built on common interests. It's built on common assignments. This burden for purpose is what preserves your purity. When your eyes are on destiny, you don't waste time experimenting with connections that have no covenant potential. You start guarding your heart, not out of fear, but out of honor for the calling on your life. You refuse to settle for someone who doesn't know what it means to weep before God, who doesn't understand that marriage is not a platform for self-fulfillment, but a vehicle for kingdom advancement. So when that shift happens, when your burden turns toward purpose, you know that God is making you ready. Because now, you're not just praying for a spouse. You're interceding for a destiny partner. When God is preparing you for a divine marriage, one of the undeniable signs is this. He begins to sever every counterfeit connection. He doesn't always ask you first. He doesn't wait for your agreement. Sometimes the disconnection is sudden. Other times it's a slow, painful fading. But one thing is certain. When your season of alignment draws near, he cleans your atmosphere. God is too intentional to allow destiny to be corrupted by convenience. Many are crying for kingdom spouses, but their heart are still entangled with people who were never sent by God. A counterfeit always comes before the covenant. It is a spiritual pattern. Before Isaac, there is always Ishmael. Before the promise, there is the temptation to settle. Counterfeits are not always evil. Some of them are kind, attractive, spiritual even, but they are not sent. They don't carry oil for your destiny. They don't multiply your obedience. They distract you from the altar. They leave you double-minded, confused, unstable. And that's the first sign. Confusion. Where God is leading, peace follows. When Satan interferes, distraction and delay take root. When God separates you from counterfeits, he's not just saving your time, he's saving your future. Because one wrong alignment can bury years of spiritual labor. One unauthorized relationship can paralyze a destiny for decades. God sees what you don't see. So even when the connection looks harmless, or even when the connection looks harmless, it cannot carry the weight of your calling. You may have invested your emotions, your prayers, even your body into something that now suddenly ends. Don't cast the silence. Don't rush to restore what God has already removed. In his mercy, he allows certain things to fail, not to embarrass you, but to preserve your prophecy. That heartbreak you're trying to pray away may be the very evidence that heaven has intervened. This separation is usually marked by divine unrest. You start to feel a holy discomfort. Conversations feel dry. Attraction begins to fade. Their voice no longer excites your spirit. It's not because you become bitter. It's because your spirit is outgrowing what your flesh entertained. And here's a mystery. Sometimes the counterfeit is not a person, it's a mindset. A false idea of what love looks like. A pattern of control disguised as passion. a toxic cycle you call chemistry. So God starts delivering you from lies you've normalized. He opens your eyes to the manipulation you once called affection. He breaks soul ties you never had the courage to confront. You will feel it deeply. It may hurt, but let it break. Because if God does not empty your hands, you will have no room to receive what he is sending. The enemy's goal is always to get you entangled with something that looks like love, but ends in bondage. But the God who authored your destiny is ruthless with anything that threatens your purpose. Let me speak prophetically. When God is about to send the right person, stay, the harder it becomes to hear the true voice of the Spirit. When you're being separated from counterfeits, isolation may come. You may find yourself alone, misunderstood, or even mocked. But remember this, divine separation is a sacred setup. God is clearing the path. He is protecting your hold. It is preserving your altar, because the real thing is never birthed in noise. It is birthed in clarity. This is how you know you are being prepared. What once fed your ego now starves your spirit. What you once chased, you now walk away from with grace. What once kept you up at night now feels like dust in your hands. That is deliverance. That is God rewriting your desires. That is the kingdom way. One of the surest signs that God is preparing you for a divine marriage is this. He begins to birth in you a deep, almost unexplainable desire for his standards above your preferences. It is not a forced shift. It's not religious guilt. It is a divine longing. Suddenly what mattered to you before starts to lose its grip. Where you once sought compatibility by culture, now you search for agreement by covenant. The question is no longer what do I want in a spouse, but what does God want in a union? When God is truly involved, he redefines your expectations, not by lowering them, but by sanctifying them. You no longer build your hopes around superficial checklists. You begin to sense that marriage is not something to personalize first, but something to submit under kingdom architecture. It is not about projecting your fantasies onto another human being. It's about aligning with what God has already spoken in eternity. This is what many miss. They want God to endorse what they've already imagined rather than allow him to shape what they should desire in the first place. When God governs your standards, he puts purpose above pleasure, alignment above appearance, spirit above style. You begin to want things you never even prayed for before. You start to crave consistency over charisma. You look for honor over hype. You seek wholeness, not just beauty. This desire for divine standards begins to expose how much of your prior desires were influenced by the flesh, by trauma, or by cultural noise. The people you used to be drawn to now look like distractions. The conversations you used to enjoy now feel shallow. You stop chasing butterflies and start looking for fruit, because you understand that attraction is seasonal, but fruit is eternal. And it goes deeper. Covenant, so God begins to teach you the language of covenant. You no longer ask, can they love me? You ask, can they love God enough to love me rightly? You're not looking for perfection, but you are looking for submission. Someone who fears God too much to mishandle you. Someone who honors covenant enough to seek his face on how to serve you. When your standards are governed by God, you stop competing with the world's definition of love. You don't measure success by Instagram aesthetics or romantic trends. You are content to be hidden in God's process, because you understand that what he is building is not fragile, it's generational. It's not just about finding someone to enjoy life with, it's about finding someone to carry God's life through. So God will begin to highlight things you once ignored. Prayerlessness will no longer be excusable. Pride won't look like confidence anymore. Laziness will not be cute. Emotional inconsistency will not be tolerated. Not because you've become judgmental, but because you've grown. You've seen too much. You've paid too much. You know what it costs to build a life outside of divine order. And let me tell you, This desire for godly standard will often offend people, especially those who still want to date casually while praying dangerously. People will say you're too deep, that your expectations are too high, but you know in your spirit it's not about being picky. It's about being prophetic. You're not preserving preference, you're protecting prophecy. That's why when God governs your standards, he gives you peace in your waiting. You no longer feel desperate. You stop chasing what won't chase God. You don't need constant reassurance that your time is coming. You are too busy becoming the answered prayer for someone else, because you know now the right person is not just someone who wants you. They are someone who can build with you. You won't fall for potential without process. You won't be seduced by talent that has no submission, and you won't assume chemistry is covenant, because you now measure a person not by how they make you feel, but by how they treat the presence of God. God governed standards birth a new kind of patience in you. You're not just waiting on a person, you're waiting on divine alignment. You don't rush, you don't force it, you don't audition for attention. You know that what is built in God's wisdom will last beyond storms. You know that love is not enough if there is no leadership, no vision, no altar, no submission. So you allow God to keep working in you, trusting that whoever is being prepared for you is under the same government, because where God rules, peace reigns. And when your standards are submitted to his spirit, you know what's divine, not by fireworks, but by fruit, fire, and favor. Beloved, hear me. The season you are in is not random. God is not silent. Is surgical. Every shift, every delay, every disconnection, every divine longing within you is a sign that heaven is crafting something beyond the ordinary. This is not just about marriage. It is about prophetic alignment. It is about fulfilling what was written concerning you before time began. There is a marriage that carries generational weight. There is a union that will become a portal for kingdom. There is a relationship that will birth revival, not just romance, but to step into it. You must first become what you are praying for. God will not give you a covenant you are not prepared to steward. That is why the process has felt intense. That is why he is demanding purity. That is why he is removing voices and breaking patterns. Because what you are asking for is not a reward, it is a mantle. And mantles come with requirements. Don't fight the process. Don't settle for substitutes. Don't confuse delay with denial.